I'm Barbara Chai with the Wall Street Journal, and we're joined today by Junot Diaz, the author of Drown, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, and his new collection, This Is How You Lose Her. Thanks for joining us, Junot.
Thank you for having me, Barbara.
Tell me about the inspiration for compiling these stories into a book.
I guess I always wanted to do, right when I was finishing my first book, Drown, I realized that I wanted to do kind of a parallel story taking out, I have this character named Junior, he appears in all my books, and I wanted to kind of write a sort of an analog book following his search and his struggle with intimacy. And I thought it would be really cool because some of that appears in the first book, but I kind of wanted to extract it and expand on it more. So I was like, this will be my Junior love book.
Many of the stories in this collection feature the same characters, Junior and his brother Rafa, as in Drown. I was just curious if you have more of their stories in your head.
I hope so. I mean, I always conceptualized the sort of saga, this sort of weird family saga, the story of Junior's life. I always conceptualized it as these various books would lock together to form one novel. That there would be this larger saga of his life, and Drown is a part of that, Oscar Wilde is a part of that, this is a part of it. And hopefully, you know, if I can get around to finishing a few more books, the other aspects will snap in, you know, and I just wanted to see if I could chart the life of one character from beginning to end. And it's a big project, but God knows if I'll finish it, you know.
So in the first collection, Drown, most of the stories were written in the first person point of view. And then there was one written in the second, How to Date a Brown Girl. But in This Is How You Lose Her, actually 4 of them are written in the second person, including the capstone story, The Cheater's Guide to Love. This is arguably one of the most difficult points of view to write in. So how did you come to that point of view?
Well, I think part of it is just your working material, and you've got to figure out the distance, what my physics students would call the Lagrange point, this perfect distance where you get all the familiarity and the closeness and the heat from the narrative, but you also get the necessary sort of contextual distance. You get a certain aspect of a view that allows you to see the larger picture and consequences. And I think that first person is an awesome form. It's a mode that I've used plenty. Third person I've used a number of times, but second person just struck me as the absolute Goldilocks zone, where we would get access to these characters' hearts, but we would also at least be able to see the larger picture of what was happening. And to be honest, it's the stories, I tried many of these for years in first person, and they only really worked when I finally switched to second.
Along the same lines, I noticed in This Is How You Lose Her, you have a first-person female point of view, which I believe is the first time you've written, you've written Lola in Oscar Wilde, of course, was female first person, but in Drown, you didn't write a short story from a woman's point of view, and I was just curious how that experience was.
I think, again, this is sort of the kind of like grad student nerdy project that I'm involved as a writer, where in my first book, what's important for Junior to do as an artist, part of his imaginary, is to imagine his father in a compassionate way. I mean, so you see in Drown, there's the final section of Drown, Negocios, Junior can imagine his father, you know, and that really shows the sort of progress. Well, in this book, I think Junior as a writer, we're aware that he's a writer, that he's an artist throughout the book, and I think an important part of Junior is to be able to imagine a woman fully, and what woman does he imagine, of course, but the other woman who his father ran off from the family with. And so, you know, the father in that story is his father, Ramon. The mother in the Dominican Republic is Junior's mother, Virta. And so I think that was just part of his journey as a dude who's trying to be able to imagine women as fully human beings. And so I kind of put the challenge for me of writing a female character, which boys tend to suck at generally, and I kind of tied it into my character so that the two of us were doing it at the same time. Me and Junior together had the burden. So even if I failed, it'd be good for the book anyway, because we would say, okay, Junot fails, but also this speaks to Junior's art.
So I wondered if we could ask you to read the very beginning of Invierno,
Sure.
one of your short stories.
The reading is always funny. You're like, I haven't seen this page in print before, so
Right.
it's weird. Okay, thank you. This is from Invierno. From the top of Westminster, our main strip, you could see the thinnest sliver of ocean cresting the horizon to the east. My father had been shown that sight. The management showed everyone. But as he drove us in from JFK, he didn't stop to point it out. The ocean might have made us feel better considering what else there was to see. London Terrace itself was a mess. Half the buildings still needed their wiring, and in the evening light, these structures sprawled about like ships of brick that had run aground. Mud followed gravel everywhere, and the grass, planted late in fall, poked out of the snow in deaf tufts. Thank you.
I'm Barbara Chai with the Wall Street Journal, and we've been talking with Junot Diaz. Thanks so much
Oh,
for joining us,
thank you
Junot.
so much, Barbara, for having me as always.